Hello, everybody. This is Secular Sekai with Tridents Against Tyrants, and welcome. If you were here earlier, some of you may be unaware, but we had I had a blackout in my area, so unfortunately, the stream was cut off at the usual time. So again, we're doing it at a different time than usual. Um, but here we are. We are back, and we've got a few things we're going to cover. I was just on the shows not too long ago, less than an hour ago, and it was a great stream. Talked with, there were a lot of us on there: Rick and Andrew and Dick and Commander McMillan and Greg and uh, Professor Gertis and Starsky. And I don't think I'm forgetting anyone else. I hope I'm not. Uh, I feel like a jerk if I am. But yeah, we were all on there. It was a good time. But we didn't have a whole lot of time to go over a lot of news. Starsky covered a little bit, but I've got some articles, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into them now. Uh, so, one second while I get that pulled up. All right, there we go. All right, let's adjust this so you can see it properly. All right. So, as many of you might be aware, currently the enemy has opened up a new front from the north in the Kharkiv region. From BBC News, let me put this into the chat. And hello, welcome everybody. I see K Bell, Silver Earth, Nikki, Anna, UTV and Ham, Appa Talks. Let's see, Aussie T, KZK, Leathercat. Welcome everybody. All right, and there is a link to the first article from the BBC. Well, let's go through this right quick. And if any of you were here earlier, you might have seen this when we were in the previous stream before the electricity went out. All right, Ukraine. Hundreds flee Kharkiv area after Russian cross-border attack. Several homes were destroyed in the town of Vovchansk. Russian attacks in northeast Ukraine have prompted the evacuation of almost 1,800 people from the Kharkiv area, the regional head has said. Kiev has been expecting a Russian summer offensive for some time, including a possible attempt to capture Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. But Ukraine insists its forces are able to resist any attack. On Saturday, Russia said it had seized 5 villages near the town of Vovchansk in its latest offensive. The BBC has not been able to independently verify the claim. Welcome, Holy Oblation. It is still not clear how far the Russians will advance, whether this is a probing attack or the start of something bigger. Ukrainian artillery guns are now firing back. The booms of exchanging fire echo loudly down the already bomb-damaged streets. A total of 1,775 people have been evacuated, Kharkiv regional head Ole Sinyahubov said on social media. Hundreds more remain in Vovchansk, just 6 kilometers away from the Russian border. Serhiy, a resident, told the BBC that his home and vehicles had been destroyed by a Russian glide bomb. His wife had been rushed to hospital with more serious injuries. Small fires were still pouring smoke across the remnants of his home. Here is a map so that you are able to see the region in the Kharkiv region right here where these attacks are taking place, and there is Vovchansk on the map. Also, probably due to the issues that were happening earlier today in my area, my internet might be a little laggy. If there's any lag, just let me know in chat. But on my end, I'm not seeing anything so far. So, Serhiy said he did not want to leave because he was afraid of what might happen to their 4 goats. As we surveyed the damage, there was the screech of yet more glide bombs being released, followed by the heavy thud of the explosion. Russia's air force is having an increasingly deadly effect, and for now, Ukraine has no answer. Ukrainian officials said Russia had the capability to aggravate the situation in border areas, but not to capture the city of Kharkiv itself. Reports suggest Moscow is hoping to create a 10-kilometer or 6-mile buffer zone for its Belgorod region after a series of Ukrainian cross-border attacks. In his nightly address on Saturday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said fighting was continuing in 7 border villages, Reuters reported. Our defensive operations continue in the Kharkiv region, he said, adding the situation in Donetsk remains especially tense. On Friday, the U.S. announced a new $400 million or 319 million pound or 371 million euro military aid package for Ukraine. It will be Washington's third installment of aid to the country after months of political deadlock, adding to the previous package worth a total of $7 billion. That, I'm pretty sure, is incorrect because it was more than that. Sent in late April. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said the urgently needed aid would include air defense munitions, artillery rounds, anti-tank weapons, and armored vehicles. On Friday, National Security spokesman John Kirby told reporters that Russia would make further advances in the coming weeks to try and establish a buffer zone along the Ukrainian border. Moscow has been looking to capitalize on the delayed arrival of U.S. weaponry by continuing to push forwards in eastern Donetsk. The return of heavy fighting in the northeast further illustrates Russia's growing ambitions. And yeah, it was already pretty much stated here in this article, but part of the issue is that the Russians still continue to feel emboldened. They're taking advantage of the time between now and when the aid that Ukrainians know they'll receive arrives. And they're trying to create buffer zones. They're trying to take more territory that they can hold on to and use basically in negotiation talks later on. Yeah, so got to get more weapons and also manpower. Ukraine does need more manpower, so we'll see how that works out and what the Zelensky administration is able to do, and how that'll work out domestically if there's a further draft. More important, well, no, I won't say more or importantly or anything like that, but one big thing to keep an eye on if there is a further draft or lowering of the draft age in Ukraine would be the effect on the economy. We'll see how things turn out in the months to come. Yep, there's a big Aurora Borealis event happening across the Americas. Very interesting stuff. All right, so sorry, I was just looking at chat. Let's go ahead and jump. And speaking of pilots, as was mentioned in this article, let's move over here and see from Business Insider. I found this very interesting, so I wanted to cover it right quick. Let me put it into chat. Ukraine's pilots are flying high-risk wild weasel missions, first developed in the Vietnam War by the U.S. Air Force, says defense analyst. Ukrainian pilots fly dangerous wild weasel missions to suppress Russian air defenses. Advanced U.S.-supplied missiles have played a critical role in these missions, and the arrival of F-16 fighter jets will help level out Russia's air superiority. So remember, guys, before, the Russians, even though they had more planes in the air, didn't really have full air superiority. They were kind of grounded. Yeah, they did not want to lose a whole bunch more of their aircraft. Slowly, it seems like that's been shifting a bit. So getting more air defense systems, getting more systems in place that are anti-aircraft, and most importantly, getting those F-16 fighter jets out to Ukraine. It's very important. Pilots in Ukraine's Soviet-era Air Force, a fraction of the size of Russia's, are using a tactic first developed by the U.S. Air Force to contest the skies above the 600-mile front line. Videos in recent months appear to show Ukrainian pilots conducting so-called wild weasel missions. The strategy involves jet pilots luring enemy anti-aircraft defenses into targeting them with their radars. The radar waves are then, waves are then traced back to their source, and the Ukrainian pilots retaliate with weapons like the US-made AGM-88 high-speed anti-radiation missiles, or HARMs, before the Russians Russians can lock onto them with surface-to-air missiles, or SAMs. Since mid-2022, the U.S. has supplied Ukraine with HARMs, which have provided Ukrainian pilots with suppression of enemy air defenses and destruction of enemy air defenses capabilities. New footage showing an early Ukrainian SEAD mission using US-supplied and integrated AGM-88 HARMs. Ukrainian UKRAF Su-27 flankers would fly at near treetop level behind the front before launching off their HARMs. This is in reader mode, so I don't believe we're not able to see that image. Let's see. The U.S. Air Force pioneered SEAD tactics in the Vietnam War. So-called Wild Weasel aircraft were tasked with destroying enemy air defense radars to clear the way for attack aircraft to fly through. The Wild Weasels had radar receivers to locate enemy air defenses and were initially armed with bombs and later special missiles that could target radar. Interesting. The term Wild Weasel originated from Project Wild Weasel. This U.S. Air Force anti-SAM strategy used direct attacks to suppress enemy air defenses, according to the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. 3 U.S. Navy McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II airplane. Oh, that's another image that we can't see. These missions, originally called Project Ferret, a reference to the small predatory mammal that enters its prey's den to kill it, were renamed Project Wild Weasel so as to not be confused with the code name Ferret, which was used during World War II for radar and countermeasures bombers. Okay, interesting. HARM is the latest of these air-to-surface missiles, a projectile of around 770 pounds with a range of some 90 miles. These missiles can locate and strike enemy radar even after the radar systems have been turned off. Thank you for 8 coffees, Silver Earth, for the drones. Thank you for everything you do for Ukraine. Thank you very much, and that is greatly appreciated. So again, the yellow is donations for the drones for our campaign for the 110th Mechanized Brigade. Blue ones are blue donations go to the channel. If you ever see a blue one on screen, and so that would be about $40 over Buy Me a Coffee, and I will let Anton know. Thank you very, very much. All right, let's see here. Where was I? HARM has been used in wars in Libya, Iraq, and former Yugoslavia, The Economist previously reported. U.S. Marines, this experience is being put to use in Ukraine. Ukraine clearly is learning from Western military thought. Frederick Mertens, a strategic analyst at the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, told Business Insider. Ukraine is putting great emphasis on SEAD and DEAD missions. These missions can be very dangerous, especially for wild weasels, he said, but the Russian air defenses are a key target. This game is worth the candle, Mertens said. But he added Ukraine's tactics go far beyond the classic wild weasel missions of anti-radiation missile-equipped air. I think that's supposed to be radar. I'm noticing typos in BBC. I'm noticing typos in this article from Business Insider. Just, man. Yeah. I just am noticing a lot more typos than usual today in these professional articles. From special forces raids to land-launched missiles like GMLRS and ATACMS, as well as UAVs of all sorts, Ukrainian use of all weapons, troops, and systems they have at their disposal to suppress and destroy Russian air defenses, Mertens said. Adapting Western weapons for use in Ukraine. The difficulty of adapting HARM for Ukraine is due to the incompatibility of the old Soviet-era jets, such as the MiG-29 and the Su-27 fighters, with modern Western technology. So yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of stuff that could be provided to Ukraine, but they really don't have the equipment, the aircraft, the infrastructure for it. So it's been just 2 years, a little more than 2 years of this war, guys. It takes a while, in peacetime even, to get everything updated and set up with a brand new system from other countries who make things and do things differently than you. So yeah, Ukraine is still in the process of shifting away from their Soviet-era tech. Last month, U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment William LaPlante told reporters at a Washington, D.C. conference that Ukraine had been using iPads in an attempt to make Ukrainian jets compatible with Western weapons. He described how Ukraine's aging fighter planes could now take many Western weapons and get them to work on their aircraft as they were basically controlled by an iPad by the pilot. Okay, that's very interesting. They're flying it in conflict like a week after we get it to him, he said. I'm not sure. Having that having that done with an iPad inside the cockpit. I mean, into if it's directly wired into the I'm not an expert if it's direct, but if it were directly wired, connected the iPad to the electrical infrastructure of the aircraft itself, I think that would be good. But if it was done wirelessly, I mean, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make a difference. But either way, that's very interesting that that's how they're bypassing um, the issue, basically, or adapting. He described how Ukraine's aging fighter planes could now. Here we go. Since making the necessary adaptations, Ukrainian pilots have fired hundreds of harms at Russian air defense radar systems. However, their technique has changed. Justin Bronk, Senior Research Fellow for Air Power and Technology at the London-based think tank Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, told Business Insider. While they initially achieved a number of successful kills against Russian SAM systems and radars when first introduced, Russian SAM operators quickly adapted their tactics, Bronk said. Now, harm launches serve a suppressive rather than a destructive purpose. When launched, the missiles forced Russian SAM operators to turn off their radars and relocate to avoid being hit by them, Bronk said. This leaves a short window within which other strike systems like HIMARS rockets or Storm Shadow missiles can get through to nearby targets, with much less risk of being intercepted by the Russian SAMs. Okay, okay, good to know. So be 2 steps ahead. Beyond just tactics, then you can utilize that into an overall strategy, assuming the Russians don't find a way to adapt and somehow, yeah. Mm, it's a short window, so I guess it becomes kind of a cat and mouse game. But regardless, that's very interesting. And I like that. I like learning about the tactics and how they can, and thinking about how they can, evolve, change, and interact with overall battlefield strategy. So, very nice. Awaiting F-16s. While modified Soviet-era fighter jets allow Ukrainians to use HARM missiles, the modifications do not allow Ukrainians to make the most of all their features. It doesn't have all the capabilities that it would on an F-16, General James Hecker, commander of United States Air Forces in Europe, said previously during a roundtable at the Air Force Association's Air Space Cyber Conference. Holy Oblation bought 20 coffees. Sorry, I don't see yellow or blue, but I'd like to support your drone campaign. Thank you very much. And is it not appearing on the stream? Either way, that right there would have been $100. So thank you very, very much for that. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. And again, we have PayPal available. Just unfortunately, PayPal does not allow notifications for Ukrainians, and that is directly linked to Anton, who is in Ukraine and is Ukrainian. But we have PayPal. That's a great way to donate. We've got Buy Me a Coffee for anyone who can't use PayPal. And then we also have Monobank, which is the most direct way, but unfortunately doesn't always work for people outside Ukraine. Thank you very, very much. Also, just let me know, can you guys see and hear the notifications on screen, the Buy Me a Coffee ones? Because they're showing up for me, and it looks like they're showing up from my end in YouTube Studio on the stream. If not, then I'll look into that and try to fix that next time. All right, let's see here. Therefore, the delivery of F-16s will be crucial for increasing Ukrainian air superiority. Earlier this week, the Netherlands announced plans to start delivering its F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine this autumn. Dutch Defense Minister Kajsa Ollongren said during a press briefing in Vilnius. Oh yeah, that's right. Well, for anyone curious, I prefer for people to donate directly to the fundraiser to help soldiers, but I'll just put it up for 1 sec. If you want to donate to help the channel, then you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Tridents Against Tyrants, or also /membership to do a one-time donation or to become a member. Either way, thank you very much to everyone for donating to our fundraising campaign. Much appreciated. All right, now then. Denmark previously said it would begin transferring its aircraft in the summer. Dealing with Russian GBAD, ground-based air defense, will be crucial to enable future Ukrainian airstrikes once the F-16 fighters arrive, Mertens told Business Insider. While the delivery of such a small number of F-16s should not be overestimated, Mertens believes they could significantly impact Crimea. Crimea is vulnerable. The Russians have relatively limited maneuver space on the peninsula. Resupply is dependent on the Kerch Bridge, and here Putin has a lot to lose, both politically and militarily, he said. If a limited number of fighters can have a real impact, it is here. Absolutely. Remember, everybody, the whole debacle with failing to fully conquer, fully be able to militarily take over Ukraine on the part of Putin, it's big egg on his face, even though he doesn't want to admit it, back home in his country, in Moscovia. But losing or otherwise seeing a major event that just extremely weakens Russian influence or presence or removes them entirely from Crimea, if that can occur, that would be an incredibly big issue for Vladimir Putin. So these F-16s, hopefully they will be put to good use. All right. So before we move on to the next article, let me check chat and see if there are any questions so far. We got a question from Holy Ablation. This is a good question. Also, I'll just open it up in the news window, and it might be a little compressed, but we'll see. That way it's just conveniently right here. Hold on. So, hold on. That's the wrong. Wait. No, is it just because it's too small? The window? Hold on. Let me see. Yep, there it is. Okay. So it looks a little different when you have the screen compressed down and it's smaller like this. But yeah, but you can still see the information. So this is in Ukrainian, and you can see here the number 23 out of 110. So we are still at 23 of 110 drones so far. But actually, I do have updates from Anton that I'm going to, I'll go ahead and show them to you guys today. In fact, let me go ahead and do it right now before we continue on with the news. So to answer the question, we are at 23 of 100 out of the 110 that we want to send to the 110th Mechanized Brigade. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's the blue one, and that's the sound of the blue donations. Unless, so that says bought a Trident. Just checking. Okay, yeah. So if it says Tridents were bought, then that's a donation. And if it says someone has become a member, then that's someone joining a membership. But yeah, so thank you very, very much. And as a reminder, coffees for the yellow that go to soldiers are $5 per coffee. And the Tridents are, I just named them differently and made them a different color to differentiate and gave them a different sound because I really just want to make it clear that it's different. Those are $1. So giving to the channel, if you've got just, I don't know, $5, $10, it's like 5 or 10 Tridents. And if you want to do more, then the coffees are $5 each for soldiers. Thank you, everybody. All right, let me go back to chat. And let's see how I'm going to do this right quick. All right, let me pull up the images and stuff that I want to show you guys from Anton. I also have a few others for some other news that we're going to cover today that were sent to me by my friend in Tbilisi, Sakartvelo, Republic of Georgia. And I know I've mentioned it on the channel before. Of course, it's not directly related to the front lines and the war in Ukraine, but it's all interconnected, guys. In 2008, when Georgia was invaded, Republic of Georgia, the country, that was a dress rehearsal for Ukraine in 2014, 2014 in Ukraine was a dress rehearsal for 2022, the full-scale invasion, and everything happening in Ukraine now, you know, it's just it's not gonna end just with Ukraine, not with a madman like Putin remaining in power, which is why somehow, some way, within our lifetime, that has to change. All right, let's see. Let's see. How am I going to pull this up? I think the best way is going to be from the browser. But if I do it from the browser, oh yes, yes, that should work. All right, I got this. There we go. Now I'm just got to get the video, move it over. And then grab this, put it over into the browser. So, oh, shoot, there's something else in the browser source. I'll just make a new browser source. Sorry, doing technical stuff, guys. Let me get this ready. This is probably going to play as soon as I press this, so hold on a sec while I pause it as it plays. There we go. Oh, wait. Yeah. There we go. Okay, and shoot. Let me make sure you guys have audio on this. Are you serious? I just realized that it doesn't have automatic. Okay, I might just have to use it in the one I already have set up. Audio. Sorry for the wait, everybody. I promise it's worth it. Just need one sec while I get this set. Okay, yeah, we're just gonna replace the other one because I don't have time to be worrying about it right now. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Let me get this video for you. But you can see it. You can see that I've got a video here, a video update for everybody. So please be patient for one sec. And then we're also going to do a frontline update video a little later.
Морпіхи 38-ї бригади морської піхоти щиро дякують Антону Ткаченку та всім, хто долучився до...
Boom. Perfect. Yeah, that's much easier. It's short. It's just 13 seconds long, but I want you guys to see it and hear it.
Морпіхи 38-ї бригади морської піхоти щиро дякують Антону Ткаченку та всім, хто долучився до збору на FPV-дрони, що будуть працювати на Херсонському напрямі. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Yeah, everybody. So we went ahead and delivered more drones. And again, the fundraiser is 110 drones for the 110th Mechanized Brigade. But remember that they were fighting, and they are still fighting, in the Avdiivka direction. But they're also connected to and have brothers in multiple other units who are now, the 110th were in Avdiivka at its hottest, when things were incredibly dangerous, when the Muscovites were coming and taking the area. So as per their request, sometimes it's going directly to their soldiers, and sometimes it's going to their brothers in other units who really need it. For me, whichever unit needs it the most, you know, they get top priority. And 110th Mechanized Brigade, if they say we want these drones to go here, then that's where they should go. So once more, I'll play it one more time.
Морпіхи 38-ї бригади морської піхоти щиро дякують Антону Ткаченку та всім, хто долучився до збору на FPV-дрони, що будуть працювати на Херсонському напрямі. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
So, to the Marines of the 38th Brigade, Heroyam Slava, and thank you for your service. All right, now then, let's go back to the news right quick. I've also got some more, let's see, what else have I got? In addition to this video showing the last few drones that were delivered to the 38th Marine Brigade, I've got some more pictures that I'll also share with you guys, but we'll do that closer to the end of the stream. For now, let's go ahead and get back to the news. Also, I'm going to delete this thing that isn't configured properly, that I don't need anymore. The question is 5 to 6. These drones cost around $500 to $600 each. So in this case, I think that was what, yeah, about 5 or 6 drones that went to the 38th. Yeah, we were fortunate to get some good donations here recently. But yeah, I mean, we still have a good, I want to say $40-something thousand, 1,785,000 Ukrainian hryvnia. Let me just look it up so I'm not giving the wrong information, but I think it's around 40-something thousand. UAH, convert it. Yeah, we still have around 45,000 US dollars left to get the rest of these FPV drones over there. When you're doing 110 of them, it is not cheap. And so yeah, your donations do matter. They make a big difference. Thank you, everybody, and we're gonna keep going. I mean, we're gonna get these drones out to the soldiers who need them. It's more. I mean, there's more than just drones that are needed, but yeah, it's important. And also keep in mind that in addition to our fundraiser, Anton also does his own work in fundraising beyond just Tridents Against Tyrants. So sometimes he's got some equipment that I'm sure comes from other work that he does. But a lot of the drones have been coming from our donations. So let's keep it up. All right, let's see. Back to this. The next thing I was going to cover was, oh yes, this was also covered a little earlier, but actually I think it cut out while I was going over this news article. Oh, hey, just Jimmy, right quick. Okay, let me put this onto the next article, just so it's not staying on the same screen. And I'm going to put this into chat, but yes, I did. I have been traveling and doing a whole bunch of stuff. I have the list of people who have messaged me who I need to get back to. I apologize to everybody. But I do recall getting an email. And yes, I will respond to you right after this stream. Thank you very, very much. All right, let's see. Also, are there any other questions? Also, am I missing anything on Discord? Nope. All right. Perfect. Let's keep going. Oh, wait a second. Is this? Oh, yeah, my video is just a little behind. In any case, so the U.S. announced on Friday a new $400 million military aid package to Ukraine. The package includes weapons Ukraine has been asking for, including Patriot missile system munitions, high mobility artillery rocket systems and ammunition, Stinger anti-air missiles, 155mm artillery rounds, Bradley fighting vehicles, and mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, or MRAPs, among other equipment. As President Biden has made clear, the United States and the international coalition we have assembled will continue to stand with Ukraine in its defense of its freedom, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said in a statement. The announcement marks the second Presidential Drawdown Authority, or PDA package, since President Joe Biden signed a long-delayed national security supplemental securing $60 billion in funding for Ukraine. Last month, just moments after Biden signed the legislation, the U.S. announced a $1 billion PDA package to Ukraine. Biden said at the time that shipments of the equipment to Ukraine would begin in the next few hours, and just 2 days later, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced a historic $6 billion long-term investment package to purchase new equipment for Ukraine. So $60 billion, then $66 billion, then an extra billion, so $67 billion, and then an extra $400 million now. This is stuff that should have been delivered a long time ago, but I am glad it is being delivered now. Because remember, guys, Ukraine is part of the West. Ukraine is one of us. Okay, I don't care if you are Canadian, American, Mexican, European, Australian, a Kiwi from New Zealand, Japanese. I mean, which is kind of funny to say because Japan is in the east. But you understand what I'm saying. When we say the West, we're not really talking about one geographic region. We're talking about allies, democratic allies from around the world, east to west. Ukraine is a part of that international bond, brotherhood, coalition, whatever you want to call it, and has those of us who are here, we have Ukraine's back. We see what's going on. We see what Russia, Moscovia is, and why it needs to be stopped. So, yeah, again, I think I said this just a few minutes ago, but thank you everybody for being here. Let's see here. The $6 billion package, the largest the U.S. has announced, is under the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, or USAI. USAI is different from the PDA package in that it contracts with the U.S. defense industry to purchase new equipment, whereas PDAs pull equipment from existing U.S. stocks. While some equipment under the PDA can arrive within days of the announcement, support under USAI takes longer. Austin said at the time that the Pentagon was going to move as fast as we can to get them the capability as fast as industry can produce. On Friday, the State Department also announced the $30 million sale of HIMARS to Ukraine, a rocket launcher that Kyiv's military has used to great effect against Russian forces. The emergency sale, which includes 3 of the HIMARS vehicles, will be paid for by Germany on behalf of Ukraine. Thank you, Germany. But officials have told CNN that Russia is seeking to exploit that lag time and step up its attacks on Ukraine as the embattled country waits for assistance to arrive. The lag in those shipments is made more severe given the months-long delay in aid as Congress debated the supplemental legislation. On Wednesday evening, the Ukrainian authorities said Russia launched dozens of missiles and drones on Ukraine targeting energy infrastructure. On Friday, a Ukrainian military source told CNN that Russian forces had penetrated at least 1 kilometer inside northern Ukraine in an assault on a border town on Thursday evening. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Friday that Russia launched a new wave of counteroffensive actions in northern Kharkiv region, Ukraine met them there with our troops, brigades, and artillery. But our military and military command were aware of this and anticipated their forces to meet the enemy with fire, he said. Now there's a fierce battle in this area. I think as of now we have stopped the enemy with artillery fire. And the story was updated with additional reporting. So good news. Lots of equipment on its way, but it's on its way. And Ukraine has been running on fumes for a while. So I wish the Ukrainian defenders all the best. They're working hard. Many of them have been at the front for months or years without rotation. Well, I guess I shouldn't say many, but a considerable amount from what I've seen in reports. And yeah, they need the supplies and they need the manpower. They need both. So the supplies are on the way. We need to push. And right now, especially since I've been traveling a lot, the call campaigns have kind of been on hold for a moment. But we're going to get back into those. And I really hope that some of you will join, especially no matter what country you live in. But most especially if you're from the EU or from the US or Canada. It can be calls, it can be emails, it can be physically writing a letter to your congressman or member of parliament. As the months come and as they pass by, as we get closer to November, December, January of 2025, another aid package is going to be needed. So we need to keep the support strong. We can't be thinking, oh, we did it. No, this war's not over. And Ukraine needs our support until the end of this war. Probably even beyond. But yeah, we got to stay vigilant, everyone. Anyway, next, let's see. We've got a piece of news from, this is, okay. So this is related to something else I wanted to talk about, which is related to Ukraine, which I've brought up in previous streams. And I believe maybe I might have even mentioned or shown some details last week sent to me by a friend. But let's go over this article right quick. It is from the Atlantic Council, atlanticcouncil.org. And this is related to a country we've talked about on this channel that is near Ukraine, which also has experience with Russian fascism, imperialism, and violent invasion. Russia's Georgia strategy offers hint of Kremlin vision for Ukraine. Recent efforts by the Georgian government to adopt a Kremlin-style law imposing restrictions on civil society have laid bare the geopolitical struggle currently underway to define the country's future. The escalating crisis in the southern Caucasus nation also offers some indications of the endgame Russia may have in mind if it succeeds in defeating Ukraine. Georgia's contentious Foreign Agents Law, which was proposed but shelved in 2023 following an initial round of protests, was revived in spring 2024 by the ruling Georgian Dream Party. Unsurprisingly, these efforts have sparked renewed protests on an even larger scale. My friend has been a part of those protests. It's been intense. Some of the images and videos that I've seen, everybody. So please keep this in mind. We need to have Ukraine at the forefront of our minds, but it's interconnected. It really is. Critics say the bill is an attempt to crack down on the country's political opposition and civil society and have dubbed it the, quote, Russian law, due to its striking similarity to legislation used by the Kremlin to muzzle domestic opponents of the Putin regime. The bill is also notable for positioning Georgia's traditional Western allies as adversaries while refraining from mentioning Russia, which currently occupies around 20% of the country. So, yeah, specifically this Foreign Agents Law, it's pretty well understood this would be directed at Western democratic nations, but wouldn't really apply to Russia. As the world watches the Russian invasion of Ukraine unfold, Ukraine Alert delivers the best Atlantic Council expert insight and analysis on Ukraine twice a week. Oh, okay, that's an advertisement about their Ukraine Alert. The Georgian government's bid to adopt legislation reminiscent of Putin's Russia is all the more remarkable as polls show that around 80% of Georgians favor integration with NATO and the EU. This has provoked a major public backlash within Georgia and has led to harsh criticism from the country's Western partners. In a recent statement, the U.S. State Department warned that the contentious legislation, along with accompanying anti-Western rhetoric from Georgian Dream representatives, place the country on a precarious trajectory that could jeopardize Georgia's path to Euro-Atlantic integration. None of these appeared to have deterred the Georgian authorities. As the crisis escalated in late April, the founder and unofficial leader of the Georgian Dream Party, billionaire Bidzina Ivanishvili, doubled down on his party's increasingly conspiratorial, anti-Western posturing in a rare public address that was reminiscent of Kremlin propaganda. Ivanishvili's speech was widely viewed as a major milestone in his party's attempts to turn Georgia away from the West and toward Russia. Let me see how long the article is. Oh yeah, this isn't too long of an article. So anyway, as it said early on in the article, look at Belarus. And actually, Rick was on with me on the shows, and he said this perfectly. The situation in Georgia is such that the current pro-Russian ruling party is seeking to transform their society from an imperfect democracy, from having democratic institutions and the ability to have opposition from other political parties, to something more like Belarus, a puppet state, a one-party state that is a puppet of Russia, that basically cracks down on any dissent and makes it impossible for protests to successfully overthrow the government. Basically turning the rule of law from one where you could have unarmed civil society convince the rest of the government to oust those who are puppets of Putin, to one where the government and the military are so closely intertwined that there is no way to stop it unless you have a civil war, which obviously protesters don't typically have military training or the means to successfully win in a situation like that, especially when you're isolated like geographically like Republic of Georgia is from other nations. In the West, I mean. With Georgian society at a geopolitical crossroads and engulfed in increasing violence amid a draconian crackdown on mass protests, many observers are drawing parallels with Ukraine's 2013 to 2014 Euromaidan revolution. Some are even asking whether the country is now experiencing its own, quote, Yanukovych moment, a reference to the pro-Kremlin Ukrainian president who fled to Russia following months of unrest. The two situations certainly appear to have much in common. On both occasions, the country's pro-Western political forces and civil society protested against an increasingly authoritarian and Kremlin-friendly government in order to defend their basic democratic rights. On both occasions, the brutality of the regime's response fueled a surge in public support for the protests. Yeah, remember that. Under Yanukovych, prior to 2013-2014, the political revolution, the Euromaidan, which happened right before Russia decided to use military force and little green men in Crimea and eastern Ukraine and the Donbass. Yeah, but before that, Ukraine's government was very, very different. They used brute force and violence in order to try to stop the protests, in order to stop the people from being able to defend their liberties, their democratic freedoms, their ability to choose. So basically what I'm saying is Ukraine has changed a lot, and Georgia is currently at the crossroads where we're going to see what changes take place there. Georgia's broader political trajectory may also provide some insights into Russia's plans if its invasion of Ukraine proves successful. The Georgian Dream Party first came to power in 2012 at a time when the wounds of Russia's 2008 invasion of Georgia were still raw. Over the past 12 years, the party has been able to gradually consolidate its grip on power, becoming steadily bolder in its promotion of pro-Kremlin and anti-Western positions. This has been achieved despite the overwhelmingly pro-Western mood in the country. This kind of scenario appears to be what Russia had in mind for Ukraine at the start of the full-scale invasion in February 2022. Moscow's initial plan was to decapitate the government in Kiev and install a puppet regime that would end Ukraine's Western integration and anchor the country firmly in the Kremlin orbit, despite strong Ukrainian public support for a European future. And that's the big thing, everybody. And actually, Rick also mentioned this in our earlier stream. If the Euromaidan, if the Maidan had never happened in Ukraine, if the Russians had been successful in their Cold War tactics, their strategy of trying to meddle in Ukrainian affairs and maintain a puppet government in Ukraine, they wouldn't have invaded because they would have, they would say, we don't need to, we won, we have a puppet government. That's the situation in Georgia. If the protesters fail, then what's likely to happen is just the government will continue to do the Kremlin's bidding, and basically you'll see Georgia become less and less free and less closely affiliated with Ukraine and the West. If they're successful, that also comes with potential consequences, because I've said that I expect Russia to invade Georgia, Republic of Georgia. That I fully expect that. And I still think that's a very strong possibility. But yeah, the reality is these protests will determine whether or not Russia decides if they quote unquote have to invade. If they can get what they want politically, they probably won't. If they can't, they'll probably start dropping bombs. And that's sadly the fucked up Russian way regarding the Russian government and military specifically. While Russia's initial blitzkrieg failed, the war continues, and Moscow has clearly not abandoned its efforts to subjugate Ukraine. Indeed, recent reports of a foiled Russian plot to assassinate Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, that I did see, and I actually need to look at that. If you guys haven't heard about that, that's pretty wild. Very recently that occurred. And other senior Ukrainian officials suggest the Kremlin still hopes to install a friendlier regime in Kiev. As they look to address the realities of fierce public opposition to Russia throughout Ukrainian society, Russian policymakers will surely draw on their experience in Georgia over the past decade or so. The current protests in Georgia are taking place as the country prepares for parliamentary elections in October. The fate of the foreign agents law is expected to significantly impact the course of the coming vote, with Georgian Dream officials accused of planning to use the legislation to silence opponents. The outcome of the October election will tell us much about Georgia's likely future geopolitical direction. It will also serve as a verdict of sorts on Moscow's efforts to regain influence in the country despite the painful legacy of the 2008 invasion and the ongoing occupation of Georgian land. That's another big thing, guys. Remember, it was completely unexpected when Russia invaded Ukraine, or to Ukrainians and many who were aware of the situation, it was unexpected. In Georgia, not so much. If Russia doesn't get what it wants, maybe I'll offer a caveat. Maybe they won't directly invade immediately. It would be more like the 2014 Crimea situation. They already have boots on the ground in 20% of Georgian territory. They can do little green men. They can, have unofficial, it's not us, it's the breakaway separatists in these regions who we station soldiers with that are, causing issues all of a sudden or attacking. There's all kinds of things that could happen. This will have huge implications for the wider Southern Caucasus region and may also help shape Russia's approach to the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. And the author, Nicholas Shaidze, is a research fellow at the Baku-based Top Shubashov Center. That's fascinating. Baku being the capital of Azerbaijan. Interesting. And remember, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Turkey have their own war, which likely will flare up again in the not too distant future. All right, let's continue onward. And Atlantic Council has some pretty good writers, so go check out some of their articles, everybody. All right, next, where are we at? We're about an hour into this stream so far. Let's go ahead and let's see. Let's go ahead and jump into a bit more news. To do that, I need to go back to the browser. I already had this loaded before, but then I decided to show you guys the video. So maybe I should have shown you guys at the end, so I wouldn't have to reset this. But let me go ahead and set the video up to show you guys. One sec. Be right back.
Something called acetic acid, which can
Almost ready. Oh, damn it. Oh, come on.
Russo-Ukrainian war. Juzzy here, and today...
Okay, I still have to manually put it back in place. One sec. There we go. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get a bit of a frontline update from Juzzy. And I probably won't go through the whole video, but let's check this out. And I'm also going to put a link to the video into the chat.
Day 806 of the Ukrainian war map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian war. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So, starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 479,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 980 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 5 tanks, 32 APVs, and a whopping 47 artillery, which are truly some colossal hardware losses, as a result of Ukraine having 121 combat engagements along the extensive front lines with Russia over the past day. Then we'll head across to the map, so starting out in Russia as in...
This is from February? Hold on a sec. It says it's from 1 day ago. Might be similar to something from February in terms of reporting, but unless he uploaded the wrong video, this says May 10th, 2024. All good, man.
In the dead of night, Ukrainian forces launched a daring strike on the Pertains refinery in the Kaluga Oblast. Multiple attack drones pierced the airspace, homing in on their target with precision, causing the complex to erupt in a fiery inferno. Now, Russian media did concede and confirmed the successful hit. Plus, it's also worthy of a mention that this is the second time the refinery has been targeted since March 15th. Also for this event, multiple regions were warned of the impending aerial attack at 12:30 AM, but by 1 AM the UAVs had already delivered their payloads. Which is therefore information that brings into question about why the second-to-none Russian air defenses that received a warning or notification ahead of time failed to respond adequately. Of course, not to put too fine a point on things, but Russia has so much airspace and so little available air defense systems to cover said airspace. And with Ukraine increasingly upping their UAV sorties capabilities to come within range of about 2/3 of Russian oil refineries, most of which exist on the much more accessible western third of the country, it makes for a genuinely pretty serious and problemsome outlook for Russia's strategic oil refinery assets.
Ooh, I just want to comment on this right quick. Okay, looking at this map, all the major refineries, I do see a few that are kind of in the center out toward not quite Siberia, but right there on the border with, wait, which country is it? Is that, there's there's Mongolia. Is that Kazakhstan? Well, I see a few small dots and then one large one out toward the center of Russia, but the majority of them are in the west. Imagine, especially if Russia ever is on bad terms with China, Mongolia, any of these other countries that border them to the Far East. Man, imagine if there were some reason, there isn't really right now, but if ever there were a reason why those countries wanted to assist separatists, if their oil refineries are some of the last available at the moment, because so many from the West have been destroyed by Russians and they're having to rebuild by Ukrainians. So many Russian refineries destroyed in the east by Ukraine's missiles and artillery, that then they have to start more heavily relying on those from the east for a bit, or building them up a bit more. Like, I could see a lot of paranoia among Moscow circles. I could see a lot of temptation from those who don't like Moscow or St. Petersburg, Western Russia, to find a way to capitalize and take hold of those resources. It's a long shot, but very interesting. So I will continue to cheer every time I see an oil refinery get blown up, especially in the west of Russia.
Then headed into the Donbass as, okay, so starting off, Ukrainian monitoring channels reported the downing of a Russian Su-25 attack aircraft in the direction of Avdiivka. We're awaiting further information on this event, though this comes just after the recent loss of a Russian Su-30 in the same region from just a few days earlier, as confirmed by Russian telegrammers. Then, in an unusual change of pace for the map, Russian forces attempted to push through at the northern Ukrainian borders to Russia. So, as with this event, seemingly a multi-vehicle scout group that got obliterated just a few moments later, suggesting that the Russian forces had not yet firstly decided to make use of a recon scout UAV. But then, the Russian forces also appeared to attempt a similar incursion on a second vector of attack just north of Vovchansk, with the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense already advising that the Ukrainian armed forces repelled the Russian breakthrough attempt at the Vovchansk direction. Now, there's a bit of background context to these extremely recent events, just in the past few hours, as it's been known that Russia has been building up some forces just north of the border, either for capturing land in the Kharkiv Oblast or as a type of psyop to keep Ukrainian forces held up or have their resources bogged down in the area. But it's easier said than done, because the AFU already has a lot of resources allocated to the north for an event just like this. Not to mention the number of anti-Kremlin Russian military units backed by Ukraine that already operate in this area along the border.
I like that little visual shout out to the Svoboda Rossiya, Legion Svoboda Rossiya, that fights in the Belgorod region.
Russia. There's also some extensive fortifications all along the north on the Ukrainian side for an outcome like this as well. So Russia should expect to already see some questionable outcomes or results like these ones. As a result, these events may serve as a reminder to the Russian army that a Ukrainian presence already existed here for quite some time. Then as for the greater Donbass area, it's actually quite rare that we don't see much in the way of map changes in the last day. Although Ukrainian mill bloggers reported slight increases in artillery munitions for some units, while others still complained of severe shortages. Conversely, however, Russian bloggers described an apparent end to Ukraine's ammunition deficit, claiming renewed artillery strikes using cluster munitions and remotely delivered landmines against Russian targets. Specifically, Russian mill blogger Pizzd Zapper reported Ukraine's use of 155mm howitzer ammunition loaded with M70 mines, describing them as an updated Cold War era munition, or that is to say, older Western Cold War stocks, which have innovated additional functionality including timed release and extended magnetic proximity sensors, with these artillery-fired M70s resembling that of a puck. These devices also include an added safety feature of detonating after a set period of time, so as to not linger in the field indefinitely. Which makes sense for what is a place that is officially known as the most mine-laden country on the planet, that is, Ukraine.
Sorry, I was on mute there for a sec. That's actually very important because anyone from places like Cambodia, or even I think still some parts of Vietnam, but especially Cambodia, yeah, those landmines can stay for decades and end up in places where decades from now children might be playing, or a couple going for a walk or something. So yeah, very important.
Then we head further south as explosions were reported in Mariupol, and it's already been reported that Ukrainian-operated ATACMS missiles hit a facility of the Russian armed forces in the occupied region, with Russian sources themselves mentioning the use of ATACMS missiles. Then having a look around on the map, so somewhere in the east, the destruction of the Russian T-80 BVM tank. This one is in the Novobakhmutivka area, near to the Sharatana front lines. And noting that the T-80 BVM is one of the most recently updated Russian tanks and holds the place as one of Russia's top tier tanks. Then, also somewhere in the east, we see some use of the Polish M120 Rak self-propelled mortar operated by the armed forces of Ukraine. And we don't often hear a lot about these platforms, which were first produced only in 2017. They also utilize the 120mm mortar, which is capable of firing at ranges of up to 12 kilometers. The Polish M...
Okay, I'll let him finish his part, then I'm gonna hop a little bit, and...
M120 Rak is also designed for versatile engagement types in both offensive and defensive operations. Its capabilities allow it to conduct indirect, semi-direct, and direct fire, making it suitable for targeting mechanized units, command posts, command observation points, and fortifications. Then moving all the way along to the south...
Alright, let's take a look right quick. Alright, I'm gonna hop over here because I see a portion about, I think that's the about the Russian NATO equivalent, which is a joke. Let's take a look.
Looks like a bailout isn't on the card, it is seeking the rationale behind the sales. So in other words, they're trying to save face, whilst at the same time attempting to lessen the blow of a massive debt spiral. Then in some more news, Armenia...
That part just now was in reference to Gazprom. So they are not doing well financially. And it is Russian Gazprom, the company, so good. They do not need any money. Other than the worthless rubles that'll be absolutely worth nothing very soon.
Has announced its refusal to finance the Russian-led Collective Security Treaty Organization, or CSTO, in 2024. Think of it as the Russian version of NATO, marking the latest move in the country's efforts to distance itself from the security alliance. The Armenian Foreign Ministry spokesperson confirmed that Armenia would not contribute to the CSTO's 2024 budget, which was adopted back in November 2022. And since Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan came to power in 2018, Armenia has steadily strengthened ties with the West while drawing criticism from Russia. Tensions between Armenia and the Kremlin have escalated in recent months, particularly after Russia and its quote-unquote peacekeepers failed to prevent Azerbaijan's armed seizure of disputed territory between the two countries. Then, in March, Armenia threatened to leave the CSTO if the alliance does not address its collective security concerns. And so you can hardly blame Armenia. They signed up for a regional security pact, only to find out later that it wasn't even worth the paper it was written on, leaving them with a bitter aftertaste in their mouth. And so, yeah, I wouldn't contribute to the CSTO's 2024 budget either, which you know would largely just be spent on Russia's military for its botched invasion of Ukraine, which would just nullify or fly in the face of all the humanitarian aid Armenia previously sent to Ukraine. No thank you. No thank you. Then headed across to...
Oh, let me go back. Yeah, okay. Everything you just said here about Armenia, spot on. And Armenia moving away from the CSTO. Georgia, currently at its crossroads with protests to see if it will have its Euromaidan moment, if it will be able to free itself from Russian clutches. Both of these, I would say both of these are very closely related. Armenia and Georgia are both right there in the same area. They are neighbors. They have major issues with other neighbors, and Armenia is isolated and cannot rely on Russia. Georgia is very much at risk of either political or military, meddling. Well, that's a light way of putting it. Usurping basically by Russia. In my opinion, Armenia and Georgia both should be working much more closely together, doing all that they can to prepare themselves militarily, and seeking close relations with the West. And if somehow things could change in Turkey to become a bit more beneficial outside of Erdogan's control, his sphere of influence, that would be great, but I'm not holding my breath on that. All right, with that, everybody, we're at an hour and 12 minutes so far. Let me check. Oh, we do have a question. Actually, we have a question from last month that I just noticed from the Discord that was never answered. So I'm gonna answer that. But first, let me check questions on YouTube. Nope, we do not have any extra questions that have come in yet. So let me take a look. All right, I'm just gonna check chat for a sec. Oh, hold on a sec. Where did my... There's the owl. Hello, everybody. All right, let's see. Michael says, I get a feeling we are seeing the dying days of the Turkish Erdogan, I believe is what you meant to type. Yeah, possibly. I hope so. But yeah, the real question is, if Erdogan were gone, then who would replace him? I need to familiarize myself with who are the political hopefuls who want to take that, that role. Because his AKP party has plenty, I'm sure, who would be vying for it. CHP opposition still has some power and influence. It could be anyone's ball game if he's gone from power. I'm just not expecting him to be ousted by the people, because Turkish society has educated, very pro-democratic, pro-human rights people, but it's also got a lot of very, conservative, uneducated, traditional, religious people. So I guess we'll see how things turn out. Um, but yeah, hopefully hopefully he'll be gone soon. If so, then ideally there wouldn't be a power vacuum. In any case, let's see here. Let me turn this on. So that's just popping up right quick without news, along with the PayPal donation notification. Let's see. All right, so here's what I'm going to do right quick. I'm going to go ahead and make a quick donation via PayPal to Anton. If anyone would like to join me, feel free. Those who have already donated over Buy Me a Coffee today, thank you very, very much. Very much appreciated. Anyone who hasn't donated, or really just anyone who wants to donate in general, feel free to join me if you like. I'm making my donation right quick. Hold on, let me see if I can do something real fast. Let me check something. Damn. Hold on. I want to try to see if I can get something to work as I make the donation.
All right, let's see here. Oh, yep, there we go. First of all, I needed to change something in my audio settings. And second, oh, wait, is this gonna be too loud? Shit. Hold on, I'm checking something. I'm trying to use a sound effect, but I don't want it to blow your guys' ears out with being too loud. Anyway. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna try it one time. If it's no good, I'm just not gonna spend too much time on this. Ah. Okay, I found it. All right, I'm going to make this donation now, everybody. Sorry, I'm playing around with my audio equipment. Thank you for being patient. Oh, you can hear me better now? Okay. All right. Awesome. Oh, well, people are still talking about Turkey. Yeah, the Kurdish situation is complex. All right. And now, yeah, probably won't blow your guys' eardrums out now. Let me make this donation. All right, and it is sent. All right, there we go. I learned how to control the volume so it wouldn't make you all deaf. And I hope it worked. It should have just been a harp. All right. So with that, let's see. We've covered news articles. We've gone over the situation at the front a bit. Relating to Georgia, and relating to let me close out the stream by showing you guys a few images. Let me just find ones that I can show you without it becoming an issue. All right, here we go. Here we go. This is an image I can share because it came from Radio Free Europe. Let me go ahead and put it up on the screen. I'm going to start with the images from the protests in Georgia, and then I'm going to go to the images regarding our fundraiser, everybody. So, here's the first one. And this shouldn't be doxing anyone because his eyes are covered, and you can see that this was reported by Radio Free Europe Tbilisi, most likely, since it's got Georgian language in the upper right, and there's symbol in the upper left. Radio Liberty. You know, this is what's happening in terms of what's being done to protesters. We've also got, let's see. This one should be fine because no one's face is visible. Here's an image that my friend took at the protests. You can see people waving the Georgian flag. You can see the many police, the small army of riot police, all gathered together over here on the streets of the capital, just to beat people and shoot tear gas at them and force them to stay in line over a law that would strip them of their rights, that would strip them of their voice, basically. Politically. Let's see. What else have I got here? Just a few more, and then I'm going to move over to our images related to our fundraiser, everybody. But I just want to comment on this. I want people to be aware of this because just like how we who support Ukraine are constantly, kind of pretty upset, rightfully so, that there aren't more people outraged about what's happening in Ukraine. It may not be a war yet, as in with bullets and bombs, but it's very serious over here as well. And connected, related to the war in Ukraine. Sorry, might have been some volume there that you guys could hear. This one shows here's a video, but it only shows the pictures of police, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'll show it to you guys because it's the protesters I'm more concerned about. You're not getting the picture, just the background? Wait, really? You might be... Wait, is it like that for everybody? Because it looks like the picture should be showing up. Yeah, it's a still pic. Yeah. Let me put this video. I've got multiple videos, but a lot of them show protesters' face. This is the only one that doesn't, so I'll show you guys this one. Oh, wait a sec. Oh, I might... do I need to... Shoot. Okay, let me go on mute while I'm showing you guys this. Yeah, so in this case, it's protesters running after the confrontation has occurred, and you have other people who are recording. Yeah, or actually, they might have been running toward the protest. But in any case, I've got others of the actual fighting, just the beating back and forth between riot police and civilians. But again, I don't want to dox any civilians. Some of these are from social media, some were recorded by my friend. Yeah. And so it's been pretty crazy. So keep Tbilisi, keep Republic of Georgia and Georgians in your thoughts, please. If you know anyone from there, or you want to get more involved in trying to help them with their cause so that what's happening in Ukraine can be avoided there, feel free to reach out to Georgians, or if you want to, I know some, you can reach out to me and I can try to put you in touch. But in any case, let's move on and go back to the topic of Ukraine. All right. So from Anton, let me get you some of our updates, everybody. Yeah, all of these should work. It's going to be the best way to do this. I think the best way to do this is actually going to be... Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Probably. That was a mistake. Sorry. Here we go. Yeah, this will work. This will work. I'll just do it directly from Signal. Okay, one sec. These were actually sent to me earlier this month. There we go. Okay, so this is the last 13 drones that we were able to fundraise before they were delivered. So, yeah, I don't know when this picture was originally taken. It was sent to me on May 4th. But, yeah, here they are. Here's Anton with the drones. Here is one of them sitting on the box after delivery. Here's some, I believe, additional components, maybe batteries that go with them. So yeah. Yeah. So we're doing pretty well. Oh, let me check something right quick. I'm going to check buy me a coffee right quick. Okay, so the last message I got from Anton said, now I'm switching off of Signal so you guys don't see all my messages. Last time I got a message from him was back in late April, when it was about $232 back then. That was waiting and buy me a coffee, and then we got 140 today, so that means at least 370. But I think we got a few more donations between now and then, so maybe at 400 something in buy me a coffee. Once we get it up high enough to where we can get at least one drone or more than one drone from it, the funds in buy me a coffee will be transferred. The reason why we wait for it to build up is because there are extra fees when pulling from buy me a coffee. But again, if buy me a coffee is the only way that works for you to donate, or if you want to have a message and the notification pop up on a stream when you donate, yeah, buy me a coffee is great. If you want to avoid those fees and money, get transferred more quickly, PayPal and Monobank are good ways to go. But whichever of the three work for you guys, I just want to say thank you to everyone who donates. It's very important. All right. Now then. Let's see. Oh, I've got a question. Are those FPV drones that they strap RPG 7s to? I don't know about RPG 7s, but grenades, various other explosive devices. I mean, really just various different explosives. Yeah. These FPV drones are smaller, more lightweight ones that are for recon, that are for dropping small, that are for dropping various different types of incendiary and explosive devices. They fly a variety of different types of missions. So, I mean, yeah, these are used in a couple of different roles. Let's see. Talking about internet infrastructure and connectivity in chat. Need to update Nightbot, some of the links on it. I'll see about doing that before the next stream. And yeah, I guess so. Actually, with that, I'd say we've covered pretty much everything, guys. Thank you all for being here. Glad we were able to cover a fair amount of news. I hope that you guys got some information you didn't already have. And once again, thank you all for being here. It's not about me, it's not about, this channel specifically. It's about helping out Ukraine. And whether you're here or you're at Rick's streams or the shills or at Why Ukraine the Last Alliance or Anna from Ukraine or Georgie at Ukraine Matters or any of the other pro-Ukraine content creators who are doing good work and helping to support both soldiers and civilians in Ukraine, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for standing by Ukraine as a whole and Ukrainians. And no matter what, we got to continue. I'm going to continue, absolutely. Whether it's 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 people watching. Right now it's about 25. Regardless, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and try to help to the best of my ability. And thank you all for doing the same. Slava Ukraini, everybody. I'm just going to double check real quick if we have any questions before. Oh, that's right. We had one question that needed to be answered. Oh, and we do have another question. So we're going to finish up with Q&A and then we're ending the stream. Not trying to be all negative, but it seems to me that a new and awful world war is imminent. What do you think the tipping point may be? Asks Holy Oblation. That's a very good question. I think that the tipping point for a world war would be... I think that the tipping point for a world war would be something like an invasion of Taiwan, which then triggered the U.S. coming in to defend Taiwan, which, if the U.S. wants to be seen as... If the U.S. wants to remain a superpower or maintain its reputation as a global superpower, which it should, and that is very much my opinion, it should, then it damn well better. So I think an invasion of Taiwan could do that. I don't think the Russians are going to use nuclear weapons. Like, you can't rule anything out. Like, a small tactical nuke is what they say. I don't think they're going to do that. But everyone's worried about that in Ukraine, and if that could, cause a World War III. Something happening on the Korean Peninsula. I also think that's unlikely. I don't think the North Koreans actually want to spark World War III. They just desperately are clinging to power, so the rest of the world's kind of leaving them alone a little bit. There's a couple different things that could, but, worrying too much about what may happen, I think, is something that we all get into the wrong frame of mind. It's not what could happen, it's probability, what seems most likely to happen. And of course, unlikely things could occur, and history could, unfold in any number of ways. But from my perspective, I don't expect World War III to break out, mostly because many nation states have a lot of layers of concessions they'd be willing to make, even when things are escalating, before they would willingly get involved in something like that. Anything's possible. Shouldn't be complacent. But Ukraine isn't sparking World War III. The war in Ukraine, I mean, the conflict. And while I do think that there are other conflicts coming up soon that could spark it, I think that the major powers of the world, for the most part, have strategies in place to try to get what they want without it having to come to that. So we'll see. But I think an invasion of Taiwan is one of the biggest things. Even then, though, I think if the Chinese tried to invade Taiwan, I think that they would back down eventually. I think that too many domestic issues would pop up for them to try to sustain that if the U.S. actually stood up to them. Thank you for a great question. Next Oh, the other question we have. He is not here right now, but James. James from Why Ukraine, The Last Alliance, actually asked a while back in mid-April, how different would the EU be acting if this war, regarding this war, if the UK were still in it? In other words, why did Putler sponsor Brexit? So I guess that's two questions, and I guess I'll need to direct James to this so he can get the answer to his question later. But I think that if the UK were still in the EU, then it's hard to say. I think. Oh, one sec. Sorry, I just got a message. Anyway, let me go back to this. I think that the UK would still be supportive of, would still be quite supportive of Ukraine, but at the same time, if Russian meddling had never caused the UK to leave the EU, I mean, I actually don't think it would be that drastically different. The UK would be calling on the rest of the EU to do more. But even when it was part of the EU, it's not like the UK could do whatever it wanted. It didn't have, like complete dominance of the alliance. That's part of the reason why so many people wanted to leave. Sadly. Yeah, I mean, I think it could have adjusted or changed, had a difference on how the UK government would see the war. But I think also the Russian meddling that resulted in them leaving the EU. But remember, the current government, the Tories, were pushing for Brexit. They aren't ousted. Labour's not in power. Okay, the same people are in charge who have been. So for the good and the bad, they're still there. I think the UK would have done more or less the same either way. Now, whether the rest of the EU would have been more interested or more supportive, that I can't say. And why did Putler sponsor Brexit? I mean, I do think that the Russians did have some involvement in that, but I really do think that I do think that Brexit was unfortunately more of an internal issue than people want to think. I think there might have been some Russian nudging and meddling to a certain degree, but nothing on the scale of like the U.S. elections when Trump won the presidency, quote unquote won the presidency. So I think that the big thing is just the UK. Unfortunately, it's an interesting political landscape, and I think that while Russian meddling did have an effect, I think that in London, some members of some Tories and those who really play into the narrative of what the UK once was and should be and how it should conduct its affairs really need to take a hard look in the mirror and ask themselves, is this for the good not only of our country but our whole continent? Anyway, he said, also answer that question again in June when right-wing MEPs gain a majority. Oh, members of European Parliament. Yeah, that's a good question. I guess we'll see next month when elections are done. Yeah, exactly. The UK is still a major player not to be messed with. Yeah, divide and conquer. It's something that the Russians definitely are doing. And they have their fingers in pretty much everything in the UK and the US and various other European countries. Yeah. It is very scummy. All right. Now then, with that, I'd say that we're good for today. Thank you for joining, everybody. If I'm forgetting anything, let me know, but I think that should be everything. Thanks for being here. Thanks for standing with Ukraine. And we will do this again next week, and hopefully I won't have a random blackout that results in the whole stream having to be rescheduled. All right, everybody. Have a great day, and Slava Ukraini. Bye, everybody.